So one thing that I really appreciate about Freedom is the way that we approach, let's say, new clients that approached us. Maybe they've got some specific things that they want to achieve with their plan. Again, maybe based on some headlines that they read. Most often it's in the offshore space. Like, I need to put more money overseas because somewhere on Twitter, I read someone saying something about the future of a country, and they kind of like ready to just pull the trigger. They just need someone to, to implement that for them. And how is Freedom's approach different in the way that we would approach a situation like that? What is the process that you would follow?
Yeah, thanks. That's a very good question. It's a process that's taken many years to develop, but just to start off by saying that we won't work with people who want something done quickly. Like, for example, I've got R1 million, just invested offshore and leave me alone. We really want to be able to help somebody commit money to a cause. We need to know what that cause is. What is the cause? It's to help you live a nice life. What is that money meant to do for you? It's meant to maybe help you travel. It's meant to help you buy a house, meant to propose to your future spouse, whatever the case may be. It all has a story. We need to understand the story because the advice we give you could be amazing or it could be incredibly bad. And we need to understand what the full picture looks like. But you talk about the headlines. What people are going to do is when they reach out like that, it's reactive. And they're probably reacting out of fear. Fear of what? Well, it's the unknown. Now, we can't tell the future, but we can probably help someone determine how ready they are for a future. A good future, a bad future, an average future in terms of economics, in terms of earnings, in terms of investment returns. So what we have to do is actually understand why is this so important for them? Like if you come to me, Pieter, and you say, Bryan, I needed to immediately take some money and invest it offshore. I needed to grow. I'll say, okay, why? Okay, well, I'm worried about South Africa, and et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so what concerns you about it? And then what we try to understand is the driver of this behavior. What we tend to find out is people normally have one of 2 to 3 concerns. It's, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. I don't know if I have enough. That type of question. I don't want to be like my parents where I've got to support them now financially, or I don't want to be a burden to my children. That's the fear. The country thing, the investment returns, the rand versus dollar is just something that sparked that fear. So what we're trying to do with our process is to understand what's the motivation behind this behavior, this instruction. Then what we do is we'll look at everything in their lives that can impact on this. Family situations, job situations. Are you looking to emigrate? Are you maybe going to be a digital nomad? All of these things impact at the end of the day on the exact ETF you might be invested in and where in the world it will be. People might not know that. And so we take a lot of time going through our planning process called the Freedom Way to understand what is it that this money is meant to do for you and when. That then determines the asset allocation for that investment. So it's a long process. When I say a long process, it's several meetings, a lot of analysis on our side, and then modeling outcomes with our clients, which you would have been exposed to now over the last month or two. And so that is why there's always a bigger picture. And your 1 million rand you want to put into an investment offshore or whatever the case may be is, as desperate as it feels to deal with it, it is just one part of a bigger picture. What we find is to address that initial fear is to get clarity on what the bigger picture looks like. Once you step back and look at the bigger picture, you realize, okay, well, this is important in the bigger scheme of things, but not that important. And now I no longer feel necessarily too stressed out about this noise in the world because why? I know what my bigger picture looks like. I know what I'm in control of. And that is the process we've been taking clients through to help understand what are the 4 things we can control in our lives. How much do we earn? How much do we put away? How much do we spend? How aggressively or conservatively do we invest? For how long do we work? These are the things that we can manage. Everything else is just noise. And as long as we use that process, we tend to find it provides people with the context they need and the clarity they need to make clearer decisions about their futures.
And it's having, essentially, I think to bring it all together is helping clients understand that, am I doing enough? Will I be okay? And if not, then what do we need to do to have enough for the future. And we will only know that if we take that step back and we spend time in the beginning. Because our first couple of meetings, we didn't really even talk about much of the numbers. We really just spend time having a conversation, asking questions about what is really important to them in their life, what makes them tick, and what flexibility do they have maybe in their careers. Because a financial plan, the way that we study financial planning is very much a linear thing. Like you have to calculate a shortfall and then you make a provision for that shortfall and then you're done. Well done. There's your marks. Real life, it doesn't work like that because we have flexibility. Some people might never want to retire. Some don't even like the word retirement. They see it as financial freedom. So want to reach that earlier. Some can continue working in some capacity. So it's really understanding each client and what their capabilities are, and then helping them understand what the lifestyle is that they want to live, what that lifestyle will cost them, and what they need to do today to make that possible. So it's kind of like we're starting in the past, then we're going to the present, then we look into the future, we reverse engineer it back to today, and we have an action step after this whole planning process to create a life plan together with the client, where we don't tell them this is what you're going to do. We have a two-way conversation and understand what can we do. This is what we need to achieve. How do we get there? The client tells us what will make sense to them. And then we create that plan together. We help educate where needed. And then they've got a plan that they're working towards. And as much as a plan is great, it's also not static. It's a dynamic thing because we go through different life changes. So it's an ever evolving thing that needs to be revised and amended, whether that's once a year or whenever time, big life transition happens. So it's helping them understand that lifestyle, build it together, and then following it, bringing the accountability in as well. Because again, plan is only as good as much as it is followed through. And sometimes people kind of forget why they have the plan, and we have to take that step back and remind them this is what we're building together, and this is why and how we're going to get there.
Yeah, there's actually a real example I can give you. In 2020, I started developing this process, and I was fortunate to have some clients, agree to work with me to go through this financial planning process. And one couple came to me in COVID. So you can obviously remember during COVID, now the markets crashed. There was a lot of uncertainty in the world. And this couple was referred to me, and I remember the phone call. The gentleman just said, "Look here, I've got some money. I need you to invest it aggressively. Everything must go offshore." So I said, "Okay, so where does this come from? Why is this a concern?" And he says, "You can see the markets, you can see the rand. Everything must go offshore." So I said, "Okay, so what is your experience at the moment with investing?" "No, I don't have any experience." So I said, let's arrange a meeting and discuss this further. So we jumped online, myself and the husband and wife. And what came about was there was now time at home to look at finances. They couldn't go to work, and so they were at home. They looked at their finances with all of the noise and concern in the world. They said, based on our calculations, our rules of thumb, all of these different guesses we're taking, we're not going to have enough money. And so the fear of not having enough led to almost like gambling, where it's like you take everything and you put it in and say, roll it on black. That was the hope, that he could double the triple the money. So I said to him, "Do you know what this money is meant to do for you and when?" And he said, "No, he doesn't." And then I said, "Would you like to understand what that looks like?" And they said, "Yes, that's all we want, is to know what our bigger picture looks like." And so we went through the planning process with them. At the end of the day, as obsessed as they were with investments at the beginning of the conversation, they were not even concerned about how the money was invested. We actually didn't take 1 cent directly offshore. It wasn't in their best interest. They were just about to retire, and they're South African and they live here. What we did was we changed the conversation, and we changed the focus from the product, which is the medicine, to the long-term ongoing changes we can make to deal with the situation we're in. We can't change COVID, we can't change the world, we can't change the economics, but we can change what we do. And so we did help that client. They're still our clients, actually. And we don't really talk too much about investing anymore. It's more about offshore traveling that they're doing, not investing. Yeah. And it's about them living full lives, spending time with the grandchildren. And so that's just an example of, once again, the fear of I'm not going to have enough, the fear of I might be a burden to my children one day, was changed through that process and conversation. They see the bigger picture. They know what their number is. They know how much they should spend every month and how much they should put away every month. to live the life they want to live because they designed it. And so that is the value of zooming out and showing someone the bigger picture. We're no longer worrying too much about that pill that can deal with the headache. We've kind of solved the problem of the headaches in general. And that is why we do what we do.
And just as rewarding as it is to help someone that's not okay yet and help them figure out what is the number that they need to achieve and maybe go start a side hustle or ask for promotion, and having that clarity as to this is the life I want to live, this is my action steps today to get there. I oftentimes also find clients that have enough, they've got more than enough than they'll ever be able to spend, but they just don't have someone that can give them that permission to go spend it because they're worried about everything. And oftentimes they're obsessed about taxes, and it's all about taxes. But once you take that step back and you really uncover what that dream holiday, maybe a round trip through Europe that they always wanted to go on, and you show them visually, if you go on this trip, you'll still be okay, and you can go next year and you'll still be okay. It's just like some light shines, it lights up, and they realize, the potential that money that money can bring to their life, and we view money as a tool to live the best life we can with those we most care about, but that comes from understanding what is that lifestyle and how can we help you live accordingly. And I agree with you, oftentimes the conversation in the beginning of the relationship starts with the products, or from the client's perspective, the products, the funds, the investments, but oftentimes after a couple of months in the journey, we don't even talk about that too much. We touch on it because we have to. It's a compliance requirement. But oftentimes the conversation is, how was the trip? When can we go next? And we can show them visually on the software we use, what that joy can bring to them. And yeah, I mean, it's incredibly rewarding. And for us to just bring that clarity to clients in the way that we approach financial planning, and the way that our incentives aren't aligned to keeping as much investments as possible so that we can earn more. We're not about that.
The way I think of it, Pieter, is, if you can think of it this way: were you ever in school? You're probably a goody two shoes, so you were never in trouble. But I don't know if you were ever approached by the headmaster and said, at the end of the day, I want to see you in my office. Now, that's all you know. You got called to the office. So what's going to happen? You're going to be very afraid. You're going to be worried. In your mind is going to go all these scenarios of, I remember last week, I actually did this one thing wrong, but I didn't think anyone saw, or, did my teacher complain, or something wrong with my parents? There's going to be a lot of questions. Now, what if the headmaster said, I like what you did last week on the sports field. I want to chat to you about that in my office after the day, after the sessions. Now, that's a different conversation. Now you know what you needed maybe to have the conversation, because you're probably going to get an award or something. So if you can imagine our clients, and I know I've been there before, they don't know what they don't know. And so they hear this noise and they don't know what they can do about their financial situation, and they don't know what their future might look like based on conservative. So now what's going to happen? All these scenarios are going to play through their minds, right? They're going to say, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. I'm going to run out of money next year, and I'm not going to have enough money for this, and I'm going to my children are going to suffer. But we can fill in the blanks. We can fill in the blanks as far as we can without making any stupid promises. And then what we can do is help them see a picture that they create for us. And so it's that peace of mind. It's so underrated, because I think a lot of the problems we have, the hypertension, the stress, the stomach problems, it comes from anxiety. Normally around money and our relationship with money. And just to give people a bit of a better vision of their future, a better vision of their current situation with what we know, is super valuable. I've seen that with clients that we've worked with. We've taken through a process. In fact, last week I had a meeting with a client, and she said that she no longer has the anxiety she has after, I think it was our first planning meeting. And so it's something we take for granted, but there's a lot of value in knowing. So I don't know if you can relate any story, or if you have anything to add to the power of helping people know something they didn't know before about themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's like wiping down a fogged mirror where you can clearly see the other side, and you can have that clarity where you might have thought, I need to do X, Y, and Z to get there, but someone telling you and visually showing you and backing what they say through calculations, that you can be okay. And I honestly believe, the hill I'll stand on, any financial problem can be solved. Oftentimes people feel hopeless because maybe they started late, or they didn't start with enough, or maybe they started investing in the wrong products, it's too expensive, whatever the case may be. Most people struggle with money anxiety. I mean, we as financial planners do as well. We're not immune to that. When the markets drop, we also get frightened. It's a normal thing. It's human nature. But to have that clarity just gives you certainty as to, this is what I need to do. And as soon as you have clarity, you can translate that to action points, and you can start reverse engineering that to daily habits. Like, how can I get to this spot? Because if this lifestyle is important for me to live, I sometimes see people overinflate the lifestyle that they could live, and then you have to take a couple step backs and say, okay, I can't do all of this. I have to prioritize. But in order to do the rest, I need to start making, either make more money, save more money, but also being able to understand what is most important to you and focusing on that. I think you also become happier, because then you're not distracted by the noise of everything going on. You're very focused the attention as to what you need to do next to get there. And it doesn't always mean that you have to do a lot. It sometimes means it's as simple as going through the planning process, getting to the action points, and having debit orders go off, and you'll be okay. And then having the revision, once or twice a year, or whenever necessary, where there's a big life transition. And I think that certainty is also great to have, that if something were to happen, it's not going to rock the boat, because we have a solid plan in place, and we can amend if needed, but not just on the whims of what the market is doing. Because, as you say, there's certain things we can control, and we focus on those things. Certain things we can't, but we position the plans to be able to weather the storms for whatever may come. And I've seen this across the board, from young people starting out to older people having that clarity. Just they light up. It's just their life change, and they become more happy, because money is not this fearful thing anymore. It's more so understanding how it works and what value that could bring to their lives, and that makes all the difference.
So something you said once again now that sparks something in me, and that is that it's obvious that this clarity that we can help clients see, we can help provide, the clarity leads to confidence. So I liken it to a situation, if you blindfolded me and you spun me around 5 times and you said, Bryan, take a step forward. I don't think my step forward will be that big, because I don't know what I'm going to step on. I can't remember what my surroundings were. For all I know, there's a uneven brick or something, and I step on it and I fall. So I won't be confident. But if you spun me around 5 times, but I never had a blindfold on, I would confidently take a step, or a side step if there was a hole there. And so that clarity provides confidence. And so I can't imagine now, and I used to live that life because I wasn't always here in financial advice, but I can't imagine what it must be like for people to constantly make financial decisions that can potentially impact their futures without having that confidence. You can't help but think that's going to compound over time. The worry, the anxiety, the concern will compound. And you get to the age of 45 or 50 and 55, you've been working since your early 20s, and you've been making these big decisions for your spouse, for yourself, for your children potentially. It must be extremely stressful. And then to finally be able to know if you're going to be okay, to get that clarity. I don't know. This is why we do what we do. I mean, Nikki, I don't know about you, but we could go back, we could sell insurance policies, but this seems like a whole lot more rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that clarity leads to confidence, leads to competence, because as soon as you understand what you need to do, you feel competent in your ability to live the life you want. And, then you know that this is what I need to do, and I can spend less mind space over here and more mind space on what's really important to me, which is my family, it's my career, it's seeing my kids grow up, it's really being present there without having the anxiety around, am I doing enough, and then having those sleepless nights. And again, for those listening, there's always a solution to any problem. It just sometimes means we will have to make trade-offs. You need to understand which different sectors are most important to you in your life aspects, and then focus on those things, and you can live a life of clarity, confidence, and competence.
Smash the like button and the bell and the notifications. Okay, cool. Well, thanks, Peter. I really appreciate your time. It's really cool once again to have you on this call, but not even that. It's amazing to have you and Aidan join Freedom Financial Planning. And for anyone out there who is curious to know what it's like to work with us, who wants to reach out to either Peter or myself, please hit us up, follow us on LinkedIn. You can reach out to us there or through our website. We'll be happy to take your call and take the conversation further. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks so much, Bryan. I appreciate the opportunity, and yeah, I'm flipping excited to see what we're gonna build together in the upcoming years.